Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're joining me. Thank you for your time. And today's Masechet tractate is Nazir Daf 16. And just from the ChatGPT, here's some points of the key topics. A state of a Nazir after a vow. This page discusses. I'll just get it. This page discusses the status of a Nazir, a person who takes a vow of abstinence from wine, cutting hair, and contact with the dead, and the purpose of taking the vow, particularly focusing on cases where a person may become a Nazir either intentionally or unintentionally. Number 2, the application of Nazir's vow. The Talmud explores the scenarios in which the Nazir's vows are valid or invalid. It discusses whether the vow applies when certain conditional details are not fully specified, and examines the responsibilities and restrictions that come with the vow. Number 3, the purification process for a Nazir. Motives for a Nazir to purify themselves after violating in terms of a vow, for example, coming into contact with the dead, is discussed, especially how sacrifice and rituals come into play in such a scenario. Number 4, the state of a Nazir who is in doubt. The page addresses situations where there is uncertainty or doubt whether the Nazir has violated in terms of their vow, leading to a discussion of how to treat the Nazir in cases of doubt. And number 5, the importance of vows in Jewish law. Nazir Daf 16 continues to underline the significance of vows within Jewish law and the ways in which they can be valid or invalidated under different circumstances. Okay, so let's dive straight into the text now. V'amalei Rabbi Yossi ka'ei kavasech da'amar mikan ulhaba mitame v'ha Rabbi Yossi hamafreya hu da'amar mafreya Midrabanan. And Rabbi Shaya said to Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yossi holds in accordance with your opinion, as he too says that in this case one becomes impure from now and onward, and any impurity after the start of the 7th day does not cause him to forfeit the previous clean days. The Gemara analyzes Rabbi Shaya's statement, but didn't Rabbi Yossi say that the impurity is retroactive? As stated above, rather Rabbi Shaya must hold as follows. What does it mean in Rabbi Yossi's ruling that he's impure retroactively? It means that he's rendered impure only by rabbinic law, but not by Torah law. The Gemara poses a question with regard to Rabbi Yossi's statement. And as to Rabbi Yossi now, he holds that the status of part of the day is like that the entire day. Although the Gemara had concluded earlier that the reason for Rabbi Yossi's ruling was not because he holds that the legal status of part of the day is like that of the entire day, but because she becomes impure from now onward, that answer is a false one, commenting on Nazir. Rabbi Avraham ben Hahar citing Rashi. However, on the opinion of Tosfot, that the principle that part of the day is like all of the day is consistent with the principle that she becomes impure from here onward. The Gemara's question here is readily understood. That's from the Tosfot Ziv Rabbeinu Peretz. How can you find a full-fledged Zava? Zava Gemura. A full-fledged Zava is a woman who has seen blood on 3 consecutive days, in which case she is required to observe 7 clean days and bring an offering upon her purification. Who brings an offering? Since she sees a discharge at the midpoint of the day, the other half of the day, Idach Palge the Yoma, there are 2 explanations for this statement. One interpretation is that even Rabbi Yossi agrees that she is at least considered ritually impure for the rest of the day on which she saw blood. However, since the legal status of part of the day is like that of the entire day, if she were to discharge blood, for example, at noon for 2 consecutive days, the morning hours of the 2nd day would be considered a clean day, in between the days of impurity, says the Rosh. Other commentaries claim that since the legal status of part of the day is like the entire day, there is no difference between the beginning and end of the day, and the hours between nightfall following her impurity would be viewed as a break between discharges. See commentator Nazir Tosfot. Tosfot state that the different approaches result partly from alternative interpretation of the phrase the other half of the day. Counts for her as a full day of observing, as part of the day is considered to be like all of the day. The Gemara answers, if you wish, say that she continuously discharges blood for 3 days consecutively, and if you wish, say that she saw a discharge on 3 consecutive days close to sunset. Samach lishkiyas hachama. In other words, she was experiencing a discharge during the entire twilight, beginning just before sunset and continuing into the start of the night. If this occurs at the end of both the 1st and 2nd days, the night of the 3rd day is also included, and she is therefore impure for 3 days, as Tosfot. The commentators point out that in that case, the hours between discharges cannot be viewed as a clean day. Even if one holds that part of the day is like all of the day, since this principle applies only to the start of the day, or according to some opinions, the end of the day as well. The middle of the day certainly cannot be considered like all of the day. See the Meiri. In that case, she is impure on each occasion at the end of the day and the beginning of the next, so that there was not any time to become pure on the following day, so as to be included for her counting of a clean day corresponding to an impure one. So we come to the end of chapter 2. So it gives a summary of Perek 2. This chapter discussed the terminology upon taking a vow of Nazirite and highlights how distinctions in phrasing can render one vow binding and another invalid. If an individual declares his intention to become a Nazirite and therefore refrain from an item that is in fact not forbidden to a Nazirite, his statement is treated as a vow of prohibition and not as a vow of Naziriteship. His use of the phrase "I'm hereby Nazirite" is understood to mean only that he is vowing that a particular item is forbidden to him. There are even circumstances in which one may take a vow of Naziriteship with regard to wine, and it will be interpreted as a standard vow of prohibition. If circumstances indicate that one was merely vowing that a particular glass of wine being offered to him would be forbidden to him. If one vows to become Nazirite on the condition that he does not accept all of the Nazirite prohibitions, his condition is disregarded and he is a full-fledged Nazirite. On the other hand, if he uttered a vow of Naziriteship but believed that only some of the restrictions were applicable to him, either because of his ignorance or due to an assumption that the sages would give him dispensation because of his unique circumstances, the vow is considered to be in error and is entirely void. If an individual vows to become a Nazirite and to bring the offerings of a Nazirite, his vow obligates him to observe a term of Naziriteship and to pay for the offerings of another Nazirite. Should two people state such a vow, each may pay for the other's offerings. If one vows to pay for the offerings of half a Nazirite, his obligations depend upon the precise wording of his vow. He may be obligated to pay for half the offerings of a Nazirite, or he may be obligated to pay for all of the offerings. In connection with this topic, the Gemara examines cases where an individual overhears someone vowing to be a Nazirite and adds, "and I," or "and this is incumbent upon me." Such a person becomes a Nazirite despite the brevity of his statement. If one vows to become a Nazirite when he has a son, only the birth of a son causes Naziriteship to take effect. If he vows to accept Nazirite upon the birth of a child, his vow takes effect regardless of the baby's gender, even if genitalia makes his gender indeterminate. However, the vow does not take effect if the baby is stillborn. If one utters multiple vows to observe overlapping Naziriteship terms, the term about which he vowed first takes precedence. If he needs to interrupt the term of another vow to observe his first vow. In such a situation, the days of the term that was interrupted might count toward the completion of that term, or they might not, depending on how many days remain at the time of the interruption. There are similar halacha that address cases in which a Nazirite becomes ritually impure in the middle of one of his terms. In connection with the possibility of impurity negating the observed days of Naziriteship term, the Gemara examines related halacha and concludes that if a Nazirite first becomes leprous and then contracts impurity from the dead while he is a leper, the days of Naziriteship term that he previously observed are not negated. Similarly, his observance of the days of his term is not negated if he became impure, having finished his term but before having brought his offerings or shaved. So now we'll move into the introduction of Perek 3. So the verse in Numbers 6:9 to 12. And if any man dies very suddenly beside him, and he defiles the consecrated head, he shall shave his head on the day of his purification. On the 7th day he shall shave it, and on the 8th day he shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons to the priest to the door of the tent of meeting. And the priest shall prepare one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering, and to make atonement for him, for he sinned by the soul. And if he shall sanctify his head on that day, and he shall consecrate to the Lord the days of his Naziriteship, and he shall bring a lamb in its first year for a guilt offering, but the first day shall be void because his consecration was ritually impure. And that's Numbers 6:9 to 12. This chapter addresses the issues that relate to the duration of the term of Naziriteship and its precise endpoint. The main situations that require clarification are those that involve consecutive terms of Naziriteship, or when the individual's Naziriteship is interrupted by his becoming ritually impure from contact with a corpse. Unless otherwise specified, the length of a term of Naziriteship is a full 30 days, and if the Nazirite shaves his hair on the 30th day of his term, he fulfills his obligation. The reason for this is subject to an Amoraic dispute appearing in the first chapter of this tractate. The present chapter tries to determine how the days are counted when one is observing two terms one after the other, in light of two different opinions in the first chapter. The Torah writes that if a Nazarite comes into contact with a corpse, all the days he observed until that point are negated, and he begins his Nazariteship from the beginning after undergoing his purification process. This chapter discusses whether the entire term of Nazariteship is negated if the individual becomes ritually impure on the last day of his term before having shaved. Is he considered to still be within his term? Must he have done an additional term from the start? Another situation examined in this chapter is one where a person states a vow of Nazariteship while he is ritually impure. Does the obligation take effect immediately? When does the counting begin? This chapter also discusses a halacha of one who takes a vow of Nazariteship in one of the lands outside of Eretz Yisrael, which sages decreed as ritually impure. Finally, the Gemara considers a case where there are conflicting testimonies with regard to how long a Nazariteship or how many Nazariteships one has vowed. Some of the issues discussed in this chapter have been partially addressed in earlier chapters. So now let's go into the text. So carrying on Daf A, Daf 16 Amud A. One who said, I am hereby a Nazarite. Misha Amad Hareini Nazir. There's a dispute between Ben Pada and Rav Matana with regard to the source for the halacha that an unspecified Nazariteship is for 30 days. The Gemara then 5a cites this mission and interprets it in accordance with both opinions. One who said, I am hereby Nazarite, shaved on the 31st day, and if he shaved on the 30th day, he has fulfilled his obligation. However, if he said, I am hereby Nazarite for 30 days, he may shave only on the 31st day. Nazir 4:1. Without specifying how long his term would last, shaves his hair on the 31st day after the start of his Nazariteship, as an unspecified term of Nazariteship lasts 30 days. If he shaved on the 30th day, he fulfills his obligation. If he explicitly said, I'm over Nazarite for 30 days, then if he shaved on the 30th day, he has not fulfilled his obligation, since the Nazariteship would have been for 30 days even without him stating. For 30 days, this addition is understood to indicate that he was in Nazariteship for full 30 days. One who accepted two terms of Nazariteship, what's the footnote? Misha Nazar Shetei Nazirus. One who vowed to undertake two terms of Nazariteship shaves for the first term on the 31st day, and for the second on the 61st day. If he shaved for the first vow on the 30th day, he shaves for the second term on the 60th day. If having shaved on the 30th day, he shaved on the 59th day, he has fulfilled his obligation. And that's Navam Sefer Hechon Nazirut for to shave at the close of the first Nazariteship on the 31st day, and the close of the second term on the 61st day. Since his second term Nazariteship begins at the shaving on the 31st day, the 61st day of the first term is the 31st day of his second term. And if he shaved for the first term on the 30th day, he shaves for the second term on the 60th day, which is the 31st day after the start of the second term of Nazariteship. And if he shaved for the second term on day 60 less 1, he fulfills his obligation, as this is the 30th day of his second term. And this testimony was attested to by Rav Papias. Who's that? Papias. We know little about Rav Papias, beyond the fact that he offers first-hand testimony about the activities that took place during the Second Temple period. Almost every time he's quoted in the Mishnah, Tosefta, and the Babylonian Talmud, his statements refer to the temple and the temple service. There was a sage with the name Rabbi Papias who is quoted in Halachic Midrash as disagreeing with Rabbi Akiva, but is likely another scholar with the same name, inasmuch as Rabbi Akiva's academy was established several generations after the destruction of the Second Temple, who heard from his teachers with regard to one who vowed to observe two terms of Nazariteship, and if he shaved for the first term on the 30th day, he shaves for the second term on the 60th day, and if he shaved for the second term on the day 60 less 1, he fulfills his obligation, because the 30th day of the first term of Nazariteship counts as part of his tally of the second day. One who said, I am hereby Nazarite, without further specification, if he became ritually impure through contact with a corpse on the 30th day, according to Rav Matana's opinion, that a term of Nazariteship lasts for 30 days, the previous days are voided by Torah law, and he must bring the offering of ritual impurity. Bar Pada, who maintains that as a matter of Torah law, a term of Nazariteship consists of only 29 days, explains that the previous day is negated due to the decree of the sages, and he does not bring the offerings of ritual impurity. Tosfot. Even if a Nazarite became ritually impure on the final day of his term, his entire tally is negated. He must bring the offerings of impurity and start counting Nazirship anew, in accordance to the unattributed opinion in the Mishnah, and from the Rambam Sefer Fla Hilchon 0.6.3 of his term in Nazirship, it negates the entire tally, and he must start his Nazirship afresh. Rabbi Eliezer says it negates only 7 days. So what does that mean? He is not considered a ritually impure Nazirite, one who is required to bring certain offerings after 7 days of purification, start his Nazirship afresh. According to Rav Matana, this is because the legal state of part of the day is like that of the entire day, and he had therefore already completed the 30th term before becoming impure. But Pada explains that Rabbi Eliezer holds that the sages did not decree that the Nazirship should be for 30 days in such a case, but rather left intact the Torah law that he is considered to have completed his term after 29 days. Term Nazirship in the gaze entire which he must observe until its purification, after which he brings the offering. If he said, I am hereby Nazirite for 30 days, and he became impure on the 30th day, everyone agrees that it negates the entire tally. If he said, I am hereby Nazirite for 100 days, and he became impure on the 100th day, it negates the entire tally. Rabbi says it negates only 30 days, as he observes. And he observes the final 30 days again. If he became impure on the 100th and first day, what's the footnote there? If he became ritually impure after the final day of his term, the day on which he brings his offerings, only 30 days negated, how should he proceed? After completing the purification process, he begins the offerings of impurity and shaves. He then observes 30 days Nazirship in ritual purity. Then he shaves again and brings the offerings of a regular Nazirite. This is according to the unattributed Mishnah. The Rambam holds that becoming impure on the 101st day voids part of the Nazirship by Torah, and he is therefore obligated in the offerings of impurity. Conversely, Tosfot and the Rosh contend that it is a decree of the sages, which means that he does not bring the offerings of a ritually impure Nazirite. Mekuni Halachot explains that in their opinion he counts 30 days after his purification and brings the offerings of a regular Nazirite. Rambam Sefer Fla Hilchon 0.6.4 before bringing his offerings. It negates only 30 days. When it does not negate all of the observed days, Rabbi Eliezer says it negates only 7 days. The Mishnah taught one who said, I am hereby Nazirite, and became ritually impure on the 30th day, negates the entire tally. Rabbi Eliezer says it negates only 7. So now on Amud B. Kesava Rabbi Eliezer kol achas melos shiva socher hareini nazir shloshim yom v'nitma yom shloshim sose al esakol lo palei Rabbi Eliezer b'da'ama shalemin. The Gemara explains Rabbi Eliezer holds that when anyone becomes ritually impure after the completion of his term of Nazirite, but before he brought his offerings, only 7 days negated, and the 30th day is after the completion of his term. The Mishnah then teaches that one who said, I am hereby Nazirite for 30 days, and became impure on the 30th day, it negates the entire tally. And Eliezer does not disagree in this case, since it is an instance where he explicitly said that he accepts Nazirship on himself for a full 30 days. Commentator Nazir and Rabbeinu Peretz explain that this is a case where one explicitly said a full 30 days. In such a case, he certainly may not shave for the completion of all 30 days. Tosfot hold that he merely said a Nazirite for 30 days. In addition to the amount of the addition of the amount of days is superfluous, as an unspecified Nazirite is for 30 days. Therefore, the additional phrase for 30 days is viewed as if he said a full 30 days. And his rich impurity therefore occurs during his Nazirite period. The Mishnah also taught that if one said, I am hereby Nazirite for 100 days, and he became impure on the 100th day, it negates the entire tally. Rabbi Eliezer says it negates only 30, and this entire mission should be explained as we discussed it according to the opinion of Bar Pada and Rav Matana earlier in 5a to 6b. Mishnah. One who took a vow of Nazirite while in a cemetery. If one vowed to be a Nazirite while he was in a cemetery and stayed there for several days, this time does not count as part of the tally of his terms of Nazirite. If he became ritually impure to one of the sorts of rich impurity for which a Nazirite must shave and bring offerings, he does not shave or bring the offerings. Rambam Sefer Flachach on Nazirut 6.8. Even if he was there for full 30 days without leaving, those days he spent in a cemetery do not count as part of his tally. The Rid writes that even though he is prohibited from shaving and drinking wine during this time, in accordance to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, those days do not count as part of his Nazirite term. since his Nazirship has not yet gone into effect, and he therefore does not bring the 3 offerings of impurity. As in the Torah, Numbers 6, 10 to 12, a Nazirite becomes impure through contact with a corpse, must bring 3 offerings after completing the purification process. They are 2 turtle doves, one is a sin offering, one is a burnt offering, and a sheep, for as a guilt offering. These 3 offerings together are referred to as a korban tumah, offers impurity, brought by Nazirite when rendered richly impure by contact with a corpse, despite having been in the cemetery. If he left the cemetery and entered it again, if one accepted Nazirite while in the cemetery and then left the cemetery, completed the purification process, and subsequently observed several days of his Nazirite, those days he counted rich impurity do count as part of his tally. If he then became rich impure by an impurity that caused a negation of his previous days of Nazirite, and renders him obligated to bring offerings of impurity, his days of purity are negated, and he must shave and bring the offerings of impurity, as explained by the Gemara below, from the Ram and Sefer Fly, Nazir 6:10. Those days do count as part of his tally. The days of Nazirite should be observed after having left the cemetery and completing his purification process, including in terms of Nazirite. According to the Anatubitin opinion in the Mishnah, it applies even if it was only a single day. If he re-enters the cemetery, he will have to bring the offerings of impurity. It does not mean that the days before re-entering the cemetery will count toward the final tally of his term of Nazirite, since the subsequent ritual impurity negates all the days they previously counted as Totzfot. Rambam has an entirely different opinion on this Mishnah. He holds that since ritual impurity of the cemetery is a lower level of impurity, which does not render Nazirite obligated to bring offerings or void the tally of the days he has counted, the Mishnah rules that if he re-enters the cemetery after starting observance of Nazirite, the days that he has observed ritual impurity account towards his final tally of term of Nazirite. The clause, and he brings the offerings of impurity, is referring to one who became impure by a corpse, which obligates him to bring the offerings. In that case, the days are counted before becoming impure will be negated. Meaning that the Nazirite takes effect, and he does bring the offerings of impurity for re-entering the cemetery. Rabbi Elazar says, this halacha does not apply to the one who entered the cemetery on that very day. So what does that mean? Lo bo b'yom. The early commentators disagree over whether 2 full days of ritual impurity are needed to the Rambam, or if his partial observance of the second day is sufficient Tosfot that he left it, as is stated with regard to halachot of a ritually impure Nazirite. But the first day shall be void, Numbers 6:12, which indicates that he does not have to bring the offerings until he will have first days of purity, during which he observes his Nazirite. If a Nazirite became ritually impure on the first or second day of his term of Nazirite, after completing the purification process and bringing the offerings of impurity, he continues to count from where he paused. If he became ritually impure on the 3rd day or later, the days he observed are negated, and he must bring the offerings of impurity. This is according to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, as no one disagrees with him in this matter. Ram Sefer Flach and Nazir 6:6. Mishnah said Nazirite does not take effect for him. The Gemara clarified the respective opinion of Rabbi Yochanan and said Nazirite takes effect for him, holds that from the moment he accepts Nazirite upon himself, it is pending, so that when it is found that his state of ritual purity, it takes immediate effect. The vow registers from when he states it, but it cannot take effect in practice as long as he stands in a ritually impure location. And Reish Lakish said that Nazirite does not take effect for him at all. Consequently, if he again said, after leaving the cemetery, that accepts a vow of Nazirite, it takes effect for him. But if he does not repeat his vow, he is not a Nazirite. Rabbi Yochanan raised an objection to the opinion of Reish Lakish from the Mishnah. One who took a vow of Nazirite while in a cemetery, even if he was there for a full 30 days without leaving, those days he spent in the cemetery do not count as part of the tally, since his Nazirite has not yet gone into effect, and he therefore does not bring the offerings of impurity despite having been in the cemetery. Rabbi Yochanan infers from this, it is the offering of impurity that he does not bring, but as far as the issue of Nazirite takes effect, it does take effect for him. Reish Lakish said to him, it means he is not included in the law of prohibited ritual impurity, and therefore he is not included in the law of the offerings. He is not a Nazirite at all. Rabbi Yochanan raised an objection to the opinion of Reish Lakish from what was taught in the Brayta in Tosefta 2:14. One who was impure and took a vow of Nazirite, the only commentaries prove from here that there is no difference between one who vowed to be a Nazirite while in a cemetery and one who did so while in a state of rich impurity from a corpse, as the Gemara is attempting to bring a proof from one to another. If one took a vow of Nazirship while he is richly impure from a corpse, Nazirship takes effect. Therefore, if he becomes impure again, drank wine or shaved, he is liable to receive lashes, as the Rambam says for Falach Nazir at 6-7. Must still observe the halachah of a Nazirite. He is prohibited from shaving and from drinking wine and from becoming impure from a corpse. And if he shaved, or if he drank wine, or if he became impure from a corpse, he incurs sofeg. What's that? From the Greek spongos, meaning sponge. The word sophog, from the root shin fei gimel, meant something that absorbs liquid, and was later extended to refer to anything that can absorb something else, whether to absorb financially, or in this case, to absorb the impact of flogging. The 40 lashes administered to one who actively transgresses negative Torah prohibition. Rabbi Yochanan asks, granted, if you say that Nazirship takes effect despite its rich impurity, that is the reason it occurs 40 lashes, similar to any Nazirite to transgress the prohibitions of Nazirship. But if you say the Nazirship does not take effect while it is rich impure, why is he incurred 40 lashes? That's the end of the Omid. Thank you for listening. Wish you a very good day, and we should have more peaceful times in Israel. Take care. All the best. Bye.